Ah, well, hello there. Welcome back to Cultural Anthropology. This week, we're going to be discussing the term paper. Real quick, I want to go over the basic requirements for the paper, and then we'll get into maybe a couple of different examples of what you might be able to do. First of all, the paper itself needs to be at least 5 pages. Okay, at least 5 pages. You can go beyond that if you feel like you want to write more than that or you've got more to tell. Please go right ahead and do more. Double spaced, size 12 font. Right? These are just some basics. The paper itself needs to include 4 topics that we will be discussing throughout the course of the semester. These topics could be and include race or racism, kinship, poverty, gender, sexuality. So you'll need to, as we go out through the rest of the semester, we'll be covering each of these subjects, and your paper will need to include at least 4 of the subjects that we cover. So start thinking about a subject that you would like to write about and how you might be able to include different aspects of that subject, where you might include these different ideas, different lenses that we're going to be discussing throughout the semester. Your subject has to be on some sort of a cultural group. This can be a very wide ranging. If you want to talk about politics, if you want to talk about gamers, if you want to talk about Black Lives Matters or indigenous communities, and then take these 4 different lenses that you're going to choose and then apply that to that subject and start thinking about how do these 4 things fit into this subject and how are they related, and allow it to sort of form from that. I'm gonna allow you guys to be pretty broad in your writing. I'd like to see you be able to take a unique approach to the subject matter. That's not to say that I'm going to go easy on you. I just like to see broad. So, take these subjects and run with them. See what you can come up with. I think it's a really great chance to take a subject that you're really interested in. And I suggest you do that. Find something that you have passion in, feel greatly about, and then, dive into it and say, okay, so if I've got to look at this subject, I'm not just going to look at one subject. I'm going to look at these 4 different aspects that are going to affect my research and how my paper might turn out. So definitely take a look at that. So the next thing we need to talk about is what you need to include as well. Are at least, you have to conduct at least 2 interviews, or not 2 interviews. You're going to be doing 2 different types of interviews, and you're going to need to include 2 people that you interview. So you're going to have 2 subjects that are going to be a part of your research, and I'm not overly concerned with where you get your sources. Just that you have 2 people and you go through the process. You're going to complete 2 different types of interviews. I want you to do a formal interview where you create a battery of questions that you will ask each of these people. Oh, hi, Bear. Hi. Yeah, no, that's you're okay. Sorry. You're going to have two people that you're going to interview. Each of these people will need to be interviewed through a formal process. So that's going to be like you're going to create a battery of questions for each person to answer. So you'll have some comparison. What did this person say when you ask them this question compared to this person? So you'll have that sort of quantitative analysis as well as some qualitative analysis. The other thing that you're going to be doing is you're going to be doing a informal set of interviews as well. And this is that process in which you basically just sit down and have a conversation with the people that you're working with or that you're interviewing. And this can be set up so that, say you're working with them, doing whatever it is that they're doing, or you're having dinner, or you're, just out having conversations, sitting out on the patio, and basically you're just going to kind of shoot the breeze and ask them questions about what it is that they're doing, and what do they think about this, and let the conversation flow. And then just make sure you record all of that information. So I think that using these two methods to gain information will be enough for this paper. There are certainly a lot of other things that we could do, but I don't want to overload you too much with stuff. So we'll just do the two interviews with two people. So that'll be your source. You're also welcome to use other outside sources. So if you have textbooks or you see something in the news that's related to your subject, you're more than welcome to use that. Make sure that you cite each of your sources, and your citing is not included into your 5 pages of paper. That's extra. So all your citations that's page 6. Okay. So that's not going to be a part of your actual paper. But you'll need to make sure that you cite all your references. So your subject, your topic, you'll need to turn in the idea that you want to use for your paper by the midterm. So you've got a couple of weeks before you've got to turn in your subject, and that'll give you some time to kind of think about what you'd like to do, start thinking about how various subjects might go into it, go to the syllabus, look at each week and what we're going to be covering, and see if that's something, if one of those subjects might be what you want to include as well. I certainly encourage you to start writing your paper as early as possible, and then as we go through and discuss various other subjects, you can go back into your paper and include that information as we go throughout the semester. That way, it doesn't seem so overwhelmingly daunting at the end of the semester when you've got to turn that paper in, that you're not doing it in the last week and trying to get all of these things accomplished. So, as you're thinking about it, as you're making those decisions, figure out what you want to do fairly early. So, and that's pretty much it as far as some of the requirements. If there are other things that need to be brought up, if you have questions or concerns about the paper, or if you want any help with creating ideas, certainly, feel free to contact me and we can work through that. No problem whatsoever. What I'll go ahead and do right now is kind of talk to you about my own research as a example. So when I was doing my master's degree, I chose to do graffiti artists as my subject for my master's thesis. So essentially, the idea was that I was going to do sort of a comparison and contrast analysis between Denver-based graffiti artists and LA-based graffiti artists. What this meant was that I had to come up with sort of like a plan. Like, what am I interested in trying to understand? What's my sort of like hypothesis, right? So I had to write up a proposal. This proposal wasn't very long, but it had to meet certain criteria. This is the stuff that I want to find out, and I understood that when I was creating this proposal, that's exactly what it was, but that my end result would probably be quite different from what I thought it would be in the beginning. And that was absolutely the truth. So, I ended up, finding some books that had to do with graffiti artists. Most of it was articles, especially in Los Angeles, about what sort of like the official status on graffiti was like. Learning about the fact that there's like one dude in LA that has cost the city over $1 million in just covering up his work, right? Just one guy has cost the city $1 million. I thought that was amazing and ridiculous to spend that much money covering up somebody's art. But I'm not the city of Los Angeles. So as I was doing this research, I started reaching out and contacting people that were doing graffiti. I knew that there was a place called the LA Arts District that a number of graffiti artists do like graffiti tours. So I contacted them and say, hey, I'd love to be able to go on a graffiti tour of LA. And there I met two of my informants. These two great guys who have been doing graffiti for decades. And so after talking to them, I also contacted some people I knew back in Denver and said, I'm going to be back in town in a few months. I'd love to sit down with you and discuss what graffiti is like for you and why do you do it. And so when I came back and to Denver after I had done my interviews in LA, I did some interviews here and talked to folks about what graffiti meant to them. And in these questions, I helped basically to allow them to kind of ramble about themselves. I didn't have a lot of questions. I think I probably ended up only having about 10 questions overall. And the interviews typically lasted anywhere between an hour and a half and 2 hours based off of those 10 questions. So, and a lot of the answers that I was looking for came from these responses. So part of the process for me was allowing them to just kind of discuss all these different aspects of graffiti and what it meant. The questions that I would choose allowed me to cover all of the bases. So I might have 1 or 2 questions about a particular subject that I wanted to ask them about, and then I would allow them to answer freely. That's one way of going about doing an interview. You might have very specific questions that you want to have answered, and those can be very valuable. For me, in what I was doing, I liked opening up the answers so that they can extrapolate on all kinds of different things and have sort of a free thought process where they can, this subject starts here and they start talking about it and then they're like, oh, well, then there's this over here and they start talking about that. And I might have someone answer one question. It might take 10 minutes for them to answer that one question. So that's one way about doing it. The other way, the informal questions, basically ended up with me meeting these guys. Usually we'd go out to a bar, or in one case, I actually went out with one of the artists, and we basically walked like 15 miles around Los Angeles and going to different places. And he always had either markers with him, and he'd be tagging something, and we'd just experience what it was like to do this. As a researcher, as someone that's never done graffiti, I was very curious as to what the process was. And so he took me out and showed me all this stuff that he would do, and we talked throughout the entire evening, and I just got to know him, and figure out what his life was like, and the qualities, and the issues and the problem. And I would sometimes do this before I would do a formal interview. The reason why I would do like an informal interview before a formal interview would be to gain a rapport with the people that I'm talking to. If you just jump right in and start asking questions, people can sometimes feel defensive. They can feel like, maybe I can't be as honest or open about my answers. But if they feel like they're a little bit more comfortable with you, and they feel like, you're honestly interested in their answers, then that can allow you to get an even deeper understanding of the subject. So I recommend doing informal interviews first, just sitting down with them and just talking about your interest. What is it that you're interested in, and why, and how do they fit into that, and just have a conversation. And then make sure that you record all of that. Take out your field notes and record all of that stuff down, and record what you thought about it. Were you surprised about one thing or another that you learned? So, do the informal first. Is my recommendation. Then do the formal interview. And the other nice thing about doing the informal interview first is that it can help influence the questions that you really want to have answered. Right? This can help you decide, what is that battery of questions that you want to understand. They can be provided in part through this informal process, allowing you to gain more insight and therefore better questions. So after I was done with my interviews, I had 3 guys in Los Angeles and 3 here in Denver. I talked to all of them, did my informal interviews and then my formal interviews. Then I took all of that information and started to process it, going through and basically organizing all of the folks, what they thought, how I could put all of the answers together. One thing that helped me a lot, and I never really realized how important it was to have a process like this, is that I would take all of their answers and I'd write them on note cards. And so I was like, and this was a thing that a lot of people do in school. I never did it in my undergrad. I was never a note card type of person. But in grad school, I learned why it was so nice to use note cards. And the reason is because it allows you to write this out, and you spread it all out, and you're like, well, this can go with this, and this, and this, and this, and this. And it allows you to pull and draw from all of this. And that helped shape my thesis. I was able to pull from all of this. Now, my thesis wasn't necessarily a paper, it was a documentary film. But the process is essentially the same, right? You're basically using film as a means of recording everything, and then that creates the body of your paper, right? So essentially, it's the same idea. So I basically went out and correlated all this information, wrote it all down on note cards, and then started creating the narrative, right? What's the story that I'm trying to tell? So I had to start out with an introduction. What is graffiti, right? What is it that I'm talking about here, and what does it mean to these individuals? And then I got into sort of the meat of it, right? So this is what graffiti is. This is how it's done. This is how it's organized. This is how it is practiced. This is how it is shared within a culture. I had these things called black books, and the different artists would write in their black books, and then they'd pass them on to their friend, or their friend would take it to another school, and they'd have the graffiti artist in that school add to this black book. And then it might get shipped out of the country, and someone else in another country would write it, and then it would get shipped back to the United States, and then somebody else would do it. And you would have these black books that had traveled literally around the world with these different artists and their stylings, and they would learn from each other. And I thought that was absolutely fascinating. And then also comparing like how technologically it had changed over time. How it used to be that you didn't have, Flickr and Facebook and MySpace, if you want to go back that far. Twitter and all this other stuff where you can actually, I don't know if you can share it on Twitter, but where you could share your art. It used to be that if you're an old school graffiti artist, you had to actually go to an alleyway, or you had to go someplace where there was graffiti, and that's where you would learn it. Now you have globalization, the internet, where everyone can share, all of this information. So there was a compare and contrast of time, right? How things have changed between the old school graffiti artists and the new school graffiti artists. And sort of what some of those issues are. And then we talked about gentrification, why graffiti artists and gang members will use graffiti to mark off territory and to oftentimes use it as a means to scare people away. Where now, we have places like Rhino, the River North District, and there are blocks and blocks and even like graffiti festivals where people from around the country will come in and paint and do these amazing murals and street art. And this is where some of this is changing, from graffiti, which is illegal stuff, to street art, which is not. And so talked about how people that like that kind of art are being drawn to it. So neighborhoods that might have a lot of graffiti are enticing people that are art lovers to come in and move into their communities, and what kind of an impact that might have. And then the topic of gender came up. One of the problems that I had as a researcher was the fact that all of my subjects were men. There are female graffiti artists out there, but I couldn't find them. Anytime I went out looking for graffiti artists, it was always guys. So what does that say about gender relations? What's going on within the culture, and how is gender related to this kind of research? I'm finding that more men are going out doing graffiti. There are plenty of women that are out there doing it, and they've got their own crews, and they might be all female crews. But are they engaging in the same type of behavior that men are? And so those are, again, questions that have to be brought up. So as you're thinking about your research, start thinking about, how all of this might fit in. And some of it might just spring forth. You might pick a subject and say, oh, okay, so this is who's doing it. Is this more male-based or female-based? Are there issues of gentrification? What's the economic basis for it? All of these different things can fit into your research. And that's why we're taking the approach here that you need to have at least 4 of these anthropological lenses to view your research through and include in your work. That way you can get a better idea of how to approach a subject. In the future, as you're taking other classes and trying to figure out some sort of a problem, you can take a much wider approach than just narrowly going after a subject. So I think that's pretty much it as far as the paper is concerned. I think this week, what I would like you to do is I'm going to create a discussion post. And it's going to be open. I'm not going to require that you put anything into it immediately, but I'd like you to start maybe throwing out some ideas. What are some things that you are interested in? What are some ideas that you might consider to become a subject? And then as people are posting their ideas, maybe you might see somebody that is going to be doing something that you know about, right? They pick a subject or considering a subject that you know something about, and you might say, hey, I actually have some resources here. I've got a person that I know that can do this and can possibly help you. Or here's an idea. This might be an interesting approach to this. Or I think you've got a great subject. How else would this work? What other lenses could you use to look at this? So what I'd like you to do is to post some early ideas on the subject, and just, even if you're just spitballing, if you've got an idea, put it up there and see what people think, and then post on other folks' ideas. What do you think about their stuff? It's a great way for us to come together, and if we were all in class, right, this would be a heck of a lot easier. Where we could actually sit down and discuss this, and people could share their ideas, and we could all work together. In pandemic times, this is not easy for anybody. So really, what I'd like you to do is to take some time, put some ideas together. And I'm going to leave this discussion board open for the rest of the semester, so that if you do go on there and you do post something, that people can go back and use it as a resource to help continue the process of research. So a couple other things. You should be getting your grades back from your reflection papers. Some of you have not been turning in your reflection papers. Please do so. Some of you have contacted me about that, and I would have responded and told you what I'm expecting. So just get the homework done. It's a huge part of your grade, and of course the first couple of weeks have been crazy, right? This is a new platform that we're all learning, and so I don't expect everything to be in right off the bat. There's going to be an adjustment period, and I'm totally open to that. But as we're moving forward, we should become more adjusted to what this semester is really going to look like and how we're going to organize it. So I'd like you to keep up with the homework assignments. Make sure you turn it in every week. Make sure you contribute to the discussion boards. It's a great place to look at other people's ideas, other people's thoughts, and comment on them and say, I like this idea or I don't like this idea. Don't be afraid to, critically analyze somebody's statement. We can't go around tiptoeing if there's something that you see and it's like, hey, I really don't agree with this, but do it in a civil way, because we're trying to create discussion. So if there's something that you disagree with it. This is the appropriate place to do that. So, but do it in a critical but not a mean way, right? We don't need any more meanness. We've got plenty of meanness going on out in the world, right? We need more puppies. Puppies are good. Anyway, so keep up, the discussions. Keep up on your homework assignments. Your grade should be coming back this week. From what I've seen, everything's looking, pretty good. I've seen some great discussion posts. Fantastic stuff. Keep it up, If you have any problems, if you're having any issues accessing the class, or if you're having computer issues, you're more than welcome to let me know. The school has got some resources that we might be able to look into. So like, even if you have like internet problems, there might be ways of going around that. So again, if there's any problems, feel free to let me know. I'm here to help you guys, and to hopefully provide some resources and try and make this interesting, and I can't emphasize enough how important cultural anthropology can be, even if you never, even if you don't go into anthropology as a field. What you can gain from it can be really, really important, just to help you go throughout the rest of your life, throughout the rest of your scholarly career and into the job market and whatever you end up doing for the rest of your life. It can help you see why people do what they do, right? What is it about people? Why do we live the way that we do? Why do we, buy the things that we buy? Why do we use the language that we have? What are the things that we find important in life? And if we do that, if we understand why we do, we might also be able to help understand why other people feel differently and why their culture might have differences. And understanding can help us mitigate the negative aspects of life, right? If we can step forward and say, this person believes this and I don't agree with it, but I understand why. I understand why I don't agree with it, and I also understand, why I'm okay with it or why I'm not okay with it. But you'll have a better understanding, and that really is the key, is having that knowledge, having that understanding about people and why they do the things they do. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and end this. This will be the only video that you guys get this week. So, yay! Take the time. If you're lagging behind, use this week to catch up. Use this week to start thinking about a subject that you would like to write about. Start thinking about who you would like to interview. Don't go out immediately and interview them because we haven't gone through the subjects. But start thinking about it. Start making a plan. And then by the midterm, you should have a decent idea of what you want to do and put together a proposal for that. Because one of the things that you will have to do is you will have to make sure that I approve of that subject. If I think it's too crazy or too wild, then, I'll say no. That probably won't happen, but you still need to get it approved. So go ahead and start thinking about what you want to do. This could be a lot of fun. That's how I would like you to approach it. Pick something that you would be interested in learning about. Make it fun. Make it interesting. Don't make it a chore. Don't make it something about, I got to do this stupid thing for class because, my dumb professor was like, oh, let's write a paper. Don't do that. Try and pick something that you're going to enjoy. and something that you find a lot of interest in, and write about it. If you're a gamer, write about other gamers and what it's like to be a gamer, but do a deep dive into it. Talk about the gender issues. Talk about the disparity in PC gamers or console gamers. Talk about race. How does race fit into gaming? Because it does. But you'll have to figure out why. So figure out all of this stuff about what it's like to be a gamer, right? I've got some friends that there's 3 generations of gamers, right? 3 generations, and they all play the same game together. It's crazy, right? There's kinship right there. How does gaming bring people together? What is all this stuff? There's lots of stuff that you could do. Black Lives Matters, right? Such a huge subject and something that a lot of people feel so importantly about. Same way with Blue Lives Matters, right? Understanding why so many people are so wholeheartedly believing in protecting police and the right of law. So how do these things fit together? So take a subject you're interested in, mull it over, discuss it, post it into the discussion, and come up with something that you find enjoyable, something that you find important, something that you want to spend time on, and use that. It'll be hopefully a lot of fun. And you might learn something about it. And as we go through the semester and we start learning about these different lenses to look through, it'll help gain perspective. And that's what we're also trying to find out is perspective. So that's it. Again, quick recap. 5 pages at least, double spaced, size 12 font. All of the stuff will be listed. 4 subjects, 4 different lenses to use when you're writing your paper, and take something that sounds interesting, right? Find 2 people that you can go interview, and do the informal interview first, and then do the formal interview afterwards, and try and come up with some interesting questions that might give some new insight into that subject. Yeah. Okay, that's it. I hope you guys have a great week. Take time to catch up if you need to catch up. You shouldn't have to catch up, but if you do, then go ahead and do so. But yeah, take some time, think about it, and then come back to me with some great ideas. I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to do, what you want to do, what you find interesting, and I will help you as much as I can as far as meeting those goals, meeting those folks, or writing that paper. I'm more than willing to look at early drafts to see if you're on the right track, or if there are things that you might want to include. Just let me know. So yeah, okay, that's it. Hope you guys have a great week. We'll talk to you next week. All right, peace out.